where our other missing folks are. We can thank Catherine for getting Eric to come and speak. I don't know Eric, so I'm going solely on Catherine's recommendation. But very timely topic on sort of social media and restaurants, which are their specialty. So the floor is yours.
Awesome, thank you. Is everybody awake? For those of you that are watching on the interwebs, it's raining outside, so I think they're a little bit cold at the moment. So thank you for welcoming me to your class. Don't hold Catherine accountable at the end of this. It will be okay. So obviously my name is Eric Clark. If you're on any type of social media, that's where you can find me. If you have follow-up questions or just want to continue talking about this topic in general, I love it. I'm happy to work through some strategy ideas or what have you. And that's my website. All right. So before we get started, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. And for those of you that are watching online, pretend that you're talking to me and explain a little bit more to the screen about who you are, because it's going to help frame sort of the conversation that we have regarding this digital media and how we integrate it and deploy these different strategies in your specific context. So I'm assuming that we're all seniors in this class, or what grade? What? Junior or senior? Quick show of hands, how many of you are currently working in the hospitality industry? Okay, beautiful. Can I get 2 or 3 volunteers to sort of share where they're working in the hospitality industry?
I work for Capital One.
You work for Capital One. Awesome. What is your role with Capital One?
Cafe ambassador at their new cafe visual company.
Very cool. That is awesome. Someone in the back.
I work at the country club. I'm a banquet server.
Okay, banquet server at a country club. Now we'll put Catherine on the spot.
I'm a assistant conference coordinator at the National Bureau of Economic Research.
Awesome. Very cool. So one thing that I like to talk about is you don't have to be in the marketing seat to start thinking about how you can leverage social media to impact either the brand or the organization that you work for. Those of you that aren't currently working within the hospitality context, what do you aspire to do? Who didn't raise their hand?
Michael.
Michael. Don't be nervous, it's okay. So, what do you want to do in the hospitality space?
He's going to own a hotel.
You're going to own a hotel someday? All right, so what we're going to talk about today, I think it'll be necessary. What about you? Are you working in the?
I worked like events too before.
Okay. Is that what you aspire to do?
No.
What do you
I want to work in a hotel.
You want to work in a hotel? Okay. Very cool. So that helps frame the context, because we look at social media differently across the spectrum. You work with a hotel maybe a little bit differently than you would with a bakery. So I want you to just keep those contexts in mind as we're thinking about the strategies that we're going to deploy. So as you define sort of the context that you want to work, you also need to really think about your customers. Who are they? So I notice most of you have at least a notepad or a computer out. So why don't you jot down sort of who your customers are? Quick show of hands, do you also take maybe a marketing course throughout your time here?
Yeah. They take a sales and marketing for hospitality.
So you've talked about customer personas, maybe not necessarily in that specific language.
Something of that, yeah.
So you're defining who your customers are. So why don't you take a couple of minutes and jot down 3 to 5 customers that you're thinking about. Same for you. And I think writing these customers down will help you as you prepare for your reflection paper as well.
I think everyone is working, maybe except for Jill. Are you working? Yeah, you are working, I'm sorry. So everybody is working. Not all in hospitality, but mostly. Yeah, they're in a hospitality job.
Actually, somewhat hospitality.
So let's compare hotels and Capital One, for example, because there's obviously going to be some overlap in that Venn diagram with sort of your customer personas. But Michael, did I get that right? What would be a customer that you would expect to walk through your door? Yeah. International. Okay. Any specific niche? International business. Corporate. All right. Now, Capital One Ambassador. You're going to have some of those folks coming through, right? What are some? So, based on your experience now.
I work here at Harvard. I work at Harvard, so I get a lot of students.
Okay. So students.
Yeah. I also get I do take international students. So and I also get newer families coming in, like new parents that deal with that a lot, or like engaged couples.
Yeah.
Is there a real cafe where they spend money?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And you purchase food in the bag? I've never been to one.
It's in the packet. You know where it loses?
Yeah.
Right. That's the flagship, and I work on Harvard.
Definitely an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, so it's like a Starbucks in a bag.
Yeah. So it's a 100% digital cafe. So there's no monetary interactions made.
Do you have to have a Capital One account to pay?
No, but you do get 50% off if you have Capital One card and you go to Pizza Hut or order a drink. They get 50% off. But you don't have to be a Capital. We don't even care. Well, we don't even care if you're a Capital One user or not. Going to the cafe. We don't ask for like to see your card or something. You just sit down and have a cup of coffee.
But you get a discount.
Yes, if you're a Capital One user.
That's a really clever concept,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, well, especially for the college students, they love it because they open an account just so they don't have to pay as much as they would at Starbucks for coffee. You're already cheaper than Starbucks, and you slice the price in half, and we get an account and these get against customers.
So
So the college students love it.
is it a partnership with Pete's Coffee?
Yes, but we also, now we're leaning in partnership with other ones. So there, if you go to one in Seaport, there's, Lightboards Cafe.
Okay. All right, so that's cool. I like. There's a lot that can be done.
Yeah, our social media is that. I don't know who works on social media. Well, I know who he is, but I don't know the rest of his team, and it's
It's good.
crazy. It's insane what they do.
That's awesome. All right. So, you have a rough idea of who your customers are. Welcome. All right. So, philosophy is important to me because philosophy drives strategy. I have a sneaking suspicion that most, if not all of you, are probably active on one social media platform. Is that a fair assumption? All right. Another assumption that people make, old people like me, is we assume that younger folks that are on these platforms know what they're doing. And there's a difference between posting a picture without strategy or posting a status update without strategy than there would be with strategy. And that's something that I really stress when I talk to people, because you have to really define your own philosophy to social media, to digital. How do you want your company or your entity to be perceived by the public? Because you can do whatever you want. If you go and you see all these marketing gurus, they're going to tell you that you have to be on every single platform, you have to be pumping out content all the time, and it's not true. What you want to do is really define what your digital strategy is going to look like for you. And there's some common practices that I think are important, but you don't have to be everything to everybody, nor do you have to post on an everyday basis, as long as you're consistent. So you need to really think about what is it that you want to use these platforms for, what do you want to educate your customers or your potential customers about, and can you efficiently manage these platforms with the existing infrastructure that you have with regards to personnel. Do you need to add, do you need to reallocate responsibilities? You really need to define your own social media philosophy for your entity before you even jump into this. So my philosophy is pretty simple. I want to engage with everybody that engages with the brand. I want to provide content that increases our value proposition, and I'll talk a little bit more about that because there's some research that's done specifically within the food and beverage industry where you educate folks on your product, it increases your value proposition, and I'll share an anecdotal story. But essentially, I like to use social media to raise awareness, to acquire customers, and then to retain customers. Now, the awareness piece is simply creating a digital strategy that is showcasing your products, showcasing your space, using different types of, the various types of platforms to do that. And going back to the strategy and the philosophy, how often do you want to share? When do you want to share? What type of information or content do you want to share is really important. So as you're thinking about it, I'll get out of your way, Mike. As you're thinking about it, that's just an easy name to remember. I'm not picking on you. Think about what your strategy and what your philosophy is at all times, because that's going to help keep you grounded and keep you firm in sort of what you decide to produce. And if you find yourself going down a rabbit hole that's chasing something that's outside of your overall strategy, give yourself permission to pull back. Snapchat is huge, but can you find a way to make it increase your bottom line? And can you build a system that allows you to assess that? And that's probably a conversation for another day, because we'll sort of take the 30,000 foot view today. But for every different context, you really need to examine it on a case-by-case basis to really understand how these different tools could impact your overall success. Any questions so far? We're supposed to come with like 10 questions or something?
Yeah, last minute.
All right, you're going to come at the last minute and just bombard me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so are any of you familiar with sort of restaurants in Quincy? Are you? So a friend of mine owns the JP Fuji Group, so they have B Cafe, Shabu Quincy, Yocha, Fuji 1546, which is now Fuji west of Chestnut, and Kama Lounge Bistro Chi, but they also have Fuji at Assembly, Fuji at Ink Block, and maybe some more.
Is that the one on Hancock Street, one of
Yeah.
them? I think, who are the owners?
So Jimmy Liang, and then Peter Tse, and then
Do they
Tony.
also own something in the Presidential Plaza?
I don't think so.
Okay. Because I thought one of our former students owned Fuji.
Well, there's another Fuji. There's a little Fuji in
Oh.
Quincy, which was the original one started by this group. Sorry, I'm making your job more difficult. And then that was probably 15 years or so. And then the current JP Fuji Group is sort of separated from that entity and built their own.
Oh, okay.
little empire.
So maybe that was the original one.
So a little background, when I was working with them, we launched an Instagram account for each restaurant. We launched a Twitter account for each restaurant. We launched a Facebook account for each restaurant. Keep in mind that when you're launching these accounts, you're going to make the assumption that not everybody is using every platform. So you're not trying to, bless you. You don't want to worry about converting people to come to these platforms. You really want to listen to understand where these folks are and engage with people on the various different platforms. So a couple minutes ago I talked about ways to increase your value proposition. So me, I grew up in northern Vermont. I had access to virtually one type of food, which was okay. But once I moved to Quincy, I have these vast options that I can try. If I'm inexperienced with diverse cuisine, if I don't know how to pronounce the ingredients, chances are I'm probably not going to go into these new entities. Mind you, if I taste the food, I'm going to love it, but there's that barrier that I don't really know what's happening here. So thinking about that with regards to social media, you can use these different platforms to create opportunities to educate folks on what it is that you do. You can do culinary demonstrations. If you're looking at the context of the Fuji Group, you do a demonstration on how to create a specific maki. You explain the different components of it, you showcase how it's made, and then you open up opportunity for conversation. Or you open up opportunity for people to praise your business and praise your food, and that then amplifies your message. Now, if we're thinking about Capital One, I'm just going to pick on you because you're wearing a t-shirt and it reminds me, what are some things that your customers or your potential customers could be educated on? Because you're not the standard type of hospitality entity. You're kind of a hybrid, and it's pretty cool to think about.
So we actually do carry a large form of financial literacy courses. So I mean, and we do have money coaching too. So they can learn a lot of stuff from us. They can learn as simple as what is credit. I've taught I've had college students walk in not knowing what credit even is and if they have a credit score or not, all the way up to different kinds of credit cards and business accounts and mean, they can learn some. They call it a comfortable environment where no one's afraid to ask a question.
That's cool. So you have educational opportunities built in-house. Do they then transcend sort of the physical space and provide these educational opportunities online?
Somewhat, but we usually do it we prefer doing it in person,
Right.
just to, it helps, not only does it help promote our brand, but it's easier to tell someone in person rather than online, because, I mean, if they could learn online, they wouldn't come to our cafe.
Right.
So, like, we have this thing called Talking Money with Your Honey. It's literally you bring in, like,
That's
your...
so cute.
Yeah, I love it. It's adorable. And, like, all these young couples come in one night, and they all just sit down, and we talk about finances, or Money Coach does finances with your spouse, your girlfriend, your fiance, what have you. It's, yeah, we do everything in cafe, whatever cafe it may be, just to keep it in our cafes.
So I'm gonna go on a tangent a little bit. Quick show of hands. Who's heard of the term inbound marketing? Who's heard of the term, or who has heard of the company HubSpot? So HubSpot is a technology company based in Boston. So essentially, the most basic inbound marketing philosophy is you are giving people a reason to go to your website, and then you have a system in place where the visitors provide you with a key piece of information that then you can use to contact them again. Folks in the hospitality industry would also benefit from this type of system, because you have these Money with Your Honeys. You may want to educate or give a little teaser virtually or digitally, and then that gives folks an opportunity to opt in to receive maybe the 10 steps to becoming financially literate with your honey.
Mm-hmm.
So you're creating a pool of potential leads or potential customers, and then through meaningful email newsletters or email campaigns, you can tease out who would benefit from a more robust face-to-face opportunity. So while I love the idea that you want to do everything face-to-face, you may be able to gain more of those face-to-face interactions if you sort of increase your value proposition by providing a little bit of a teaser, or maybe a very...
I mean, we do ads on spaces on other websites, and we do them on our own website, just to give it like a quick synopsis of what it's going to be. But that's as far as it goes. I think.
So you're kind of doing it.
And yeah, we'll give a synopsis of like, hey, here's what you're going to talk about. How, and it's also like it also gives them advice on how to approach your honey about your money.
So that
I don't understand HubSpot. What's the difference between HubSpot and Capital One? Capital One doing it on their own website.
you can. So HubSpot essentially is a tool that works behind the scenes where you can, say you visited Mike's website. HubSpot would then sort of document that using a cookie, and they would then follow your actions on that website, and Mike could have like if-then statements in place. So if you landed on this particular page on the website, then you are sent an email that pertains to this particular content.
And you ever wonder how someone finds out what you're Googling?
Well, yeah, because there's this company called Open Sky, and I clicked on this blouse once that I thought was kind of nice, but I never bought it because I can't tell you how many times they come back and say an item you looked at is 50% off.
Yeah.
Or it's waiting.
So that's HubSpot. So Mike has to pay HubSpot for this service?
That's more of an average. So we'll go on another tangent. So HubSpot is a tool that companies can use to sort of track behaviors of the website visitors on their sites. And based on some of those behaviors, they can have action built out. So depending on your actions on the site, you could receive an email. You could receive some type of other communication based on your interaction on that website. What also can be done on your website is to add a tracking pixel. So if you have a Facebook tracking pixel, or if you have a Twitter tracking pixel, I'll know if you visited my website. So say I have a bakery website and I have a tracking pixel on there, and I want to put an advertisement in front of everybody that has visited sort of the bridal page, because you want to put an advertisement for cakes, wedding cakes in front of this particular person. You can target an ad to Facebook visitors or 2 visitors to your website using this Facebook tracking pixel to make sure that your advertisement is getting in front of the right people. So if you have ad dollars to spend, you can get super nerdy and you can put these tracking pixels on your website and you can customize your ad down to the URL that people visit.
Don't people sort of get annoyed with that? I mean, I feel like that's an awful thing to have. Like, I would hate that. Like, if I accidentally go look at the wrong thing once or click on the wrong thing once, I'm screwed. Or like if someone else is using my computer.
Right. Those are all philosophy, right? How do you want your potential customers to feel with how intrusive do you want? I mean, how would you feel if I told you I was collecting tweet data for everybody tweeting in a geographic fence that I placed around the city of Quincy? It'd be kind of creepy, right?
Yeah.
It'd be done, and I'd see what type of being shared within this geographic fence. Granted, it excludes people that have private accounts. And it gives you a good sample of what people are talking about within this particular area. You're going to need some robust software to analyze it because there's a lot of content. But there are some tools out there that you can use to really live. Now, I'll jump ahead. Did I answer your question about the
I guess I have a question about the money aspect of it. HubSpot.
It's extremely expensive.
Okay.
Anywhere between probably.
And these tracking devices are expensive.
So the tracking pixels are free.
Oh.
So if we look at HubSpot, that's a software package that you pay for itself. I think I haven't looked at the pricing. I think it probably could start at like maybe $1,000 a month. And people use it to build these campaigns. So you drive some to your website and you have a white paper that you have available for download. People download it. You have created this white paper to meet a certain customer persona. So you know that this particular customer theoretically would like to receive content B and C, whatever that is. And if we go to the hotel thing again, you could have a white paper based on the top things that you should be aware of while you're planning a corporate event. So that means whoever downloads that, well, theoretically,
It's going to plan a corporate event.
Would be planning a corporate event, which then sets the stage for the follow-up conversations that you have with them. And HubSpot allows you to have some of these communications set up automatically, so you don't need to worry about when you're reaching out. You have the emails already pre-canned, so once X number of days have gone, for a lot of small businesses, I think it's probably over the top and not necessary, because you can build some of these methodologies without using such a robust tool, and I think that's okay. So, engage, surprise, and delight. When I say listen, what does that mean? If we're thinking in the context of social media, what are some things that you might be listening for?
Keywords.
Listening for keywords, as they pertain to what?
Your company.
Your company.
Your social media strategy.
Your social media strategy. So you want to listen to see who's talking about you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can do just a quick, simple search on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Snapchat's a little bit, well, it's impossible to do that type of search. What are some other things we might want to be listening for? Kathy? Complaints?
Trends.
Trends. What type of trends? Put it in your context. Or so think of your career aspirations. Frame it in that particular context.
Like hospitality and like hotels, so like different my main focus is kind of like event planning. So like different focuses are in terms of like certain event planning agencies that have like certain trends and certain packages that are offered. So like I look for stuff like that. Things that like kind of pretty much are like a trend, but like still constantly stay the same. But like that's pretty much it.
So it's sort of like industry trends.
Yeah.
Cool. Is anybody familiar with Foursquare?
Yeah.
Format or whatever, is that even a thing? What do you think happens when people check into Logan and they share it on Twitter?
It's just public.
Is there a specific piece of that text that's going to be the same for every single person that shares?
No.
Like I checked into Logan, yada yada yada.
Oh, you mean like what people write personally
Yeah.
for their own?
So when you check in on Foursquare, like I checked into Boston Logan, That's probably going to show up on a fair number of people that check in on StoreMap. Why might that be beneficial for folks in the hospitality industry in the Boston area to be searching for?
They'll stay at your hotel?
You could stay at the hotel, possibly.
What is Foursquare? I'm probably the only person who doesn't know.
I don't know.
Oh,
It's
It's like Facebook check-in.
it's like, you know when you check in somewhere on Facebook, you know, people like, oh, so-and-so checked in at this restaurant.
you go to Facebook and you do check-in.
No, it's a different kind of website.
Oh, it's a different-
It's literally, you just check in on Foursquare. So it's literally just,
Why don't you just go to Facebook and check in?
because there's always something new.
Because
And they
Foursquare
want-
provides deals.
Yeah.
It's
So like if you check in,
you check into a restaurant and then like they have a discount for drinks or whatever, then you can use that.
Oh,
yeah. So if you check, so a lot of restaurants usually
Oh,
do
I
that.
love a deal.
It's like check in at us on Foursquare, and we'll give you 50% off X, Y,
Okay.
and Z, or you'll get buy one get one free. Or it's just another social media. It's more for business and it's a lot more for business.
So if you're a hotel, you could be listening to see, okay, where are these folks going? Are they having a good experience? What have you? There's a lot of stories out there where these social media professionals have had a bad experience at a hotel in Vegas. They tweet about it. Hotel down the street is listening to that and say, hey, come on over, we'll take care of you, we'll treat you right. And then that particular entity gets their business. Now, depending on your size and your scope of your organization, you have to really understand who you are to see if that would even work, because there's some costs associated with it, whether it be outsourcing with a firm or trying to pay somebody in-house. But these are things that you all want to be listening to. How many of you are familiar with Assembly Row over in Somerville? There's a large number of restaurants over there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a restaurant over there, I may be trying to listen to see who's talking about the other restaurants in the area. One, because I know that not everybody is active on social, not everybody is sharing their experiences on social. So if I can identify people that are actively sharing on social that talk about food, let me try to find a way to convert them to my customers so they can then talk about me. So there are different tools that you can use to listen other than just the basic search functions within the social platforms, and if we have some time, I can share what those are. But you always want to listen. You want to listen to see who's talking about you. You want to listen to see who's talking in your area. You want to listen to see who's talking about potential competitors, to see if you can find ways to engage those folks and then surprise and delight them, whether it be, I'm not a huge fan of discounting things, but if part of your ethos is to maybe give away a free item or what have you, you can share that with a person. Say, come on in, we'll treat you right, we'll give you a drink on the house or whatever. So a friend of mine is launching a brewery. I know this may be not an appropriate topic because your age levels for maybe you're all 21, whatever. But the whole idea is I'm trying to figure out who is active on social for one, and then which of these folks are actively talking about brands that parallel this particular guy's operation. So what I've been able to do, I use a tool called If This Then That, now it's IFTTT. And what I've been able to do is create a rule where every time somebody tweets about, say, the top 15 craft breweries in the area, it will populate or aggregate that tweet data into a spreadsheet. So it'll give me the timestamp of when the tweet was sent, it'll give me the Twitter handle of the person sharing the tweet, it'll give me the content of the tweet, and then a link to the tweet. What I can do is I can analyze that, and I can identify who are the most active Twitter users that are talking about this particular topic. And then once the brewery launches, I'm going to engage them and I'm going to invite them down for the first tour. Because you know that these folks are talking about comparable products in this particular area. So they could fit any one of your
What did you use to get that data?
If This Then That. So it's a free tool that you can use to say, if something happens, then do this. It's kind of it's a tool that's used for productivity hacks.
So it's like a simulator.
Yeah. So there are certain things that at the end I can pull it up on the screen, because it's not just for social media. You can use it for a lot of your daily activities. I'll go through it at the end and show the different things that you can do with regards to Twitter. Another thing use if this then that for us to share my Instagram photos. How many of you share Instagram photos on multiple platforms and it just shows up as a link? Or how many of you are irritated when somebody shares an Instagram photo and the photo doesn't come through, just a link? So using if this then that, you can engage with your users by setting up a rule where once you share a photo on Instagram, it will automatically share on Facebook and Twitter as a native image, instead of forcing people to click through the link to see what it is you're trying to share. So that sort of decreases the barrier, and it's just a testament, I think, to our level of focus, because if we're not willing to click through and view it, it says something. Then surprise and delight. So thinking about your context, what are some ways that your company or your future company has or will surprise and delight customers? Or what does that mean sort of to you?
Come on, don't leave them hanging.
We said, what does surprise and delight mean?
Yeah, what are some examples of ways that you've seen this done at Capital One?
So we have a surprise, we call it Delighted to Surprise program, and it's literally just, we actually featured on Ellen for it at one point, because someone sent, for example, someone sent, some girl came in crying because her boyfriend just broke up with her and she was having issues with her account, and the person literally sent flowers to her house.
That's cool.
So we've sent flowers. I sent a onesie a couple weeks back to a newlywed couple. So it's literally just like you engage with, when you engage with a customer, you feel like you really connected, and you want to do something nice for them with absolutely nothing else in mind. Like I didn't expect them to come back and open up a credit card account. I didn't expect them to come back and even thank me. It was
Let's be honest. That's what you're hoping for.
My job isn't sales driven, so it doesn't matter if I open even just one account.
Oh, okay.
They don't care. It's a very non-competitive environment.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to have the relaxed feel.
Examples of how you've been able to surprise and delight, that's a really good one. I like that a lot. And I think if that's at the ethos of your entity or your company, you're going to do really, really well, because it's honest, it's authentic, and you don't want to surprise and delight people with the anticipation that you're going to get something back. Chances are you're going to, but I'm a firm believer if you put good into the world, yes, you may not get all good back, but you can sleep on it at night. Any other examples of what are some ways that you've been surprised and delighted? I've got a couple from my own situation. I'll go to the restaurant context. When I was working with the Fuji Group, there was a customer that would go to Shabu in Maine, which is a hot pot restaurant. So I would engage with this particular user on a regular basis. She would come in, and there were times where they would ask if I could make a reservation. It wasn't built into the company policy that you would make reservations over over Twitter or Facebook. But what I did is I picked up the phone, I called the restaurant, I said, hey, look, can this person have a reservation for 7 at this particular time? And they loved it. Come to find out, this person moved to DC, but every time they would come back, they would reach out to us and they'd say, hey, we're coming back, we'd love to come stop in and say hello. So these types of relationships are extremely powerful. And then Warby Parker, is anybody familiar with Warby Parker? Last summer, I stupidly jumped in the ocean with my sunglasses on, and then I tweeted about it, like, oh man, this stinks. They didn't send me a free pair of glasses, but they did send me a deck of playing cards, which I used to play with my 2 oldest daughters now. So finding ways to provide a little glimmer of happiness into somebody's life, it doesn't take a lot. The thought that somebody would actually do something says a lot. And you know where I'm going to buy my next pair of glasses? Probably Warby Parker. So these are all things that you want to think about as you're developing your philosophy, as you're developing your strategy, and you're going to need to build in some systems, whether it be a CRM, a customer relationship management tool, or if your point of sale system has something like that built in, or if you go old school with an Excel spreadsheet, finding ways to categorize and organize the data and the information from your customers will allow you to more easily re-engage them when it's time to give them some surprise and some delight. Any questions? I love that example. I want to go to Capital One.
What about someone like?
I was going to say we have a whole department dedicated to it. Like I have to send my request to this department in Virginia, and then they're going to send. Then they'll send it on my behalf. So I literally just put in a request and be like, I literally said I want to send them a onesie with this note. They took care of it.
That's awesome.
I literally did nothing else but type something.
Good You're talking about complaints?
No, what about a company like Land's End? It's not going to be surprise and delight. I think it's Land's End, but you know, you can return those pair of pants, even if you wore them 25 times.
Right.
That's awful.
Hmm?
That's kind of weird.
But it's kind of built into their
Yeah.
philosophy.
25 times.
Well, I think something has to happen.
I was gonna say, did they like shred them up and use them again? 'Cause
And I think
that's
there's ways that you
uncomfortable.
could leverage social media with that, whether it be putting in sort of a postcard on the return package and saying thank you for your dedication, and having a specific hashtag dedicated to this particular initiative, and encouraging people to share photos and create content on your behalf. Maybe throw in a free pair of socks or whatever. You don't do it every time because that would ruin the books. But really knowing sort of what your own margins are and what you're capable and what makes.
They just read the book by Tony Hsieh, the CEO of Zappos.
Yeah.
So his philosophy was very similar
Yeah.
to that.
That's very cool. I forgot about negative content or negative comments. So how many of you have ever complained about a company online? Anyone? Yeah. How many of you have gotten a response from those complaints, or did they just go, raise your hand if your complaints went unheard or unresponded to? What does that make, how does that make you feel about the company?
Like they just don't care.
Like they just don't care. I think one thing you want to recognize that if you do make a mistake, I don't think you will, but if you do make a mistake, actually acknowledge it and try to take the conversation offline, whether it be via direct message or via phone call. Try not to have these conversations in plain view, and don't delete it unless it's something that's threatening or whatever. Again, define your own policies, define your own procedures on how to engage with negative customer feedback. For me as a user, if I see a company make a mistake, acknowledge that they made a mistake and show that they were trying to address it in good faith, that makes me feel good. I don't care if it's there. But you have to really know and understand your customer personas and how they will perceive that. I'd like to say leave it up there, but if it doesn't fit your context, you can't. So by day, I'm the director of admissions at Quincy College. So if students or former past perspective, if they're putting up something that is completely egregious, false, and we've done everything we can to remedy the situation, we may need to hide it, which may cause even greater outrage, but those are the risks that you're going to have to balance out and figure out, okay, this is a risk that I'm willing to take. And then there's some safety measures, you can block them or what have you from the page if they are not a legitimate customer and if they're just making complaints for no reason. Okay. So once you go through those steps, you repeat them. You continually find new ways to listen, you continually find new ways to engage, and you want to find new ways to surprise and delay. Build that CRM so you can actually quantify who you're giving these special things to measure, to see if it's having an impact on your bottom end, whether it be for an increase in reservations for this particular customer, if it's an increase of accounts or savings, or however you define your success metrics. You want to build that into your digital strategy because if you don't, you're really just measuring likes and reach and impressions, and those don't necessarily correlate with an increase in your bottom line. So you really need to think about sort of developing that system on the front end that will allow you to assess your social media efforts by focusing on specific goals that you know, or specific metrics you know have an impact on your revenue. All right, so it's your turn. You have questions. You're supposed to have questions. Quick show of hands, who needs to check what time we have? Any questions?
It feels like Big Brother is always watching you. Is it going to get worse?
It's probably worse than what we even realized. I think it will.
Are people going to pull back then and not have it, not put so much stuff on Facebook, or?
That's where we need to get the social scientists in here. I think even if we look at the last election cycle, people use social media as an outlet to espouse whatever they wanted. And I feel like it may have even fed the egos of a lot of people. So I don't know. I'd like to see it pull back a little bit. I'm on the fence because I like technology, but I also like sort of the face-to-face interaction and yeah, I'm torn.
And I also feel like it's making us a very egotistical society. Like, you know, look at this expensive vacation that I went on. Look at this nice meal I'm having at this, you know, nice restaurant. Or look how beautiful my children are, you know.
Can you imagine what her Facebook looks like?
And I just feel like, oh my God, we're constantly patting ourselves on the back.
Oh, absolutely. I know I am.
You know, and I mean, obviously, I'm of a very different generation where we didn't have any of this, you know, and it was just, you just did it through conversation, or you pulled out your photo book of your kids, but it wasn't done on the level that it's being done now.
Do you think it's hard for some businesses to start up these days because of the expectations that certain companies, like Capital One or anything, the customer service that they bring out? Like, do you think in terms of like a customer service basis? So like you open a really nice business, and you're giving good feedback to your customers, but it's not, you know, I mean, do you think that level's going to stay up there so much that it's going to be hard for?
I think you're gonna. That's a great question. Sort of asking, how does Capital One has set the bar extremely high because they have the infrastructure in place to make that happen. And is it going to make it more difficult for new companies to emerge on the scene? I think it'll be difficult in the sense that the expectation is high. If you're a Capital One customer and you're assessing the landscape and you see these other folks, but their engagement or their content production isn't as high. But I think as a new entity, if you're setting the expectations and you're clear with that, and then you're consistent with the content you're sharing, with the level of engagement you have, I think that and if you have a killer product that you're offering, I think you'll be okay. The behemoths, obviously, I mean, it parallels probably that of TV ads, right? Where if we go back 15 years, if Capital One is investing in TV ads, it's going to be difficult for new players on the scene to sort of steal market share from them just because of the oversaturation of it. Social media probably does sort of even the playing level in a sense where if you can really develop a good strategy and you can run efficiently and you can run lean, you can do some of the things that the major players do, but not necessarily everything. That's a really good question. I'm going to go wrestle with that a little bit. I mean, as a one-person show running 8 different restaurant handles, I was able to find different tools that I could use to help me sort of monitor who's talking about the brand, who's talking about specific keywords, so I can run and I can talk to people on a regular basis. So again, as I said from the beginning, this is a very top-level, 30,000-foot view. So I can share some tools that can be used for the smaller operations to make it a little bit more efficient. I'm going to go chew on that question for a little bit.
How long have you been doing this for the restaurants?
So I did it for about 1.5 years. About a year ago I stepped away because my wife had twin girls. So that pushed me to 4 children, which was a lot. But I've stuck around with smaller entities. And then anybody go see Blink Boston, Faneuil Hall with the lights and all that stuff. So I helped them with their social media engagement over those 6 weeks. So talking and engaging with people on Facebook and Twitter. So there's all kinds of different levels of hospitality, different types of hospitality.
And how do you measure tactics are working?
So you don't really have a system in place you can measure the increase in email subscriber, you can measure their open rate to their email to see if your message is getting out there. You can measure check-ins, you can measure the number of mentions. but without having a concerted effort from all of the merchants, it's very difficult to see if the rising tide lifted all ships. So that, I think that task of aligning all of the merchants and all of the vendors in that particular space to run the same assessment on their overarching business, it's difficult. So as I venture on and I connect with new clients, on the front end, we're very strategic and very intentional with building how are we measuring success. I'm not interested in seeing how many followers we can grow because that's an arbitrary number. I want to know quality and I want to know how are we increasing the bottom line. So obviously I have a beard and I started volunteering for a beard balm company based out of Detroit to help them really get their digital presence up and running. So what we decided to do was to have some discount codes that were dedicated to each of the separate social media handles. So we're going to be able to use that to identify where we acquired new customers, and then over a longitudinal study we'll be able to identify how did their yearly spend compare to that of a former customer. So there are different success metrics that you can put in place. I saw some tweets coming in, right? I think the product was mentioned on the Kathy Lee Gifford show this morning, so I really need to do some research on that and see. And then, again, that's one example of ways that you can leverage other people's networks. So if you have, Capital One you said was on Ellen, right? Mm-hmm. So engaging with Ellen's community is another way to attract new customers and do some customer acquisition that way and brand awareness.
Did they go after Ellen or did Ellen come to them?
I mean, I know the Surprise and Delight one, the lady who had the girl flowers, Ellen went after her, because the lady that got flowers put on social media. Then last week, they were actually in one of the cafes in Philly, I think maybe Ellen reached out.
One thing that's not really social media, how many of you have heard, I'll come to you in 1 second,
Okay.
have heard of the website Help a Reporter Out, HARO.com. So what I would do is I would recommend that you go create an account right now, because Help a Reporter Out is a great way for you to get press. So every day I get, I would say, an email in the morning and an email at night of requests from reporters that are looking for experts in field X, Y, or Z. So if you go to Help a Reporter Out, you fill out your profile, you say that you're a hotel that is an expert in event management. Any request that comes in with that particular subject matter, you can then respond, provide information as the content expert, and then maybe have an opportunity to get featured in a write-up.
Oh, that was so cool.
Yeah. When I had a tutoring company back a million years ago, I would respond to people inquiring about different educational things. So it's just a nice way to sort of assess the landscape, see if there are trends, things that people are talking about, and then find ways to speak into that broader conversation.
That's great for like businesses. Yeah. Never heard of that before.
There was actually a request that came through for Boston that was from Zagat, looking for, I think, pastry ideas or something to do with desserts. So
yeah.
If you're in that particular context, it might be in your best interest to reach out to them, because you can get a feature in this, and then that's content that you can share across your platform, saying, hey, look who's talking about us.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then one thing you might want to consider is creating private Facebook groups. I think that's probably going to be the next wave of how folks are using Facebook to really engage with their influencers or their biggest advocates. So creating a Facebook group where you can surprise and delight in that context, whether it be with a special invite to an opening party or special promotional item, or if you're launching a new dessert, they can give you the feedback and they can test it. There's ways that you can build community that are outside of the conventional posting on the Facebook brand page, boosting the ad, and then interacting and engaging. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things that can be done. And it will continue to evolve and it will continue to change. All right.
Well, I heard you mentioning like have 2 girls and if you're married.
Are there like any limitations on your social and personal life due to like being the director of admissions at Quincy College?
I think
are there certain things that you can't do and also like involving social media as well?
I think just in general, it's not that the institution has put parameters on me, it's I put parameters on me. I'm going to be authentic and I'm going to be transparent. I think what I put on the outside on social is very much me. You're not going to see me going to the club on whatever night of the week and going wilding out or anything like that. I'll share experiences that I'm having with my kids if I'm hiking in Blue Hills. I try to be cognizant of what I share with them, just because I don't want to be responsible for defining their digital footprint too broadly. I want them to be able to do that when the time comes, and I want to respect their privacy that they don't even really know that they want to have. Sidebar, there was a girl in Australia, I believe, that sued her parents because they refused to take her baby butt pictures off of Facebook. So they put some photos of her when she was a baby in the pool or whatever, and it was embarrassing to her, and they wouldn't take it down, so she sued them. So just being aware of your personal brands.
It's a little dramatic.
Yeah.
How old was she?
She was 19, I think, 18, 19.
Oh, come on.
I don't know if I want my baby butt photos online.
It's your parents.
Well, just to the sense of taking it down, not
Yeah.
for any monetary thing, just, yeah.
What was the outcome? Did it come?
I think they took it down. But this sort of, your question is a good one, and it talks about personal brand, right? So you can leverage your Instagram, you can leverage your Twitter, whatever account you're on to sort of promote your brand and who you are as a professional. I never really wanted to use these platforms to show how crazy I was, because I was never really that crazy. Life circumstances forced me to grow up a little bit quicker than most people. So thinking about who you are as an individual and what you want to be viewed as, that's sort of the advice I would give you as you're framing your own personal brand. Thinking about if your employer is sitting next door, how is the best way to sell your skill set or your knowledge base? Because I think the premise we want to get attention from other people is there, whether it's positive or negative attention. You can take a lot of efficacy with these tools and gain positive attention based on what you share and what you don't share.
There was a great example, I think it was Jimmy Kimball. This young man was looking for an internship. He was a communications major, and he had seen a skit that Jimmy did with, I don't remember who the actor was, and he replicated the skit. It was a rap,
Yeah.
using the alphabet, and so he inserted himself, and Jimmy was still in it, and it blew up on social media. Long story short, he got the internship.
That's awesome.
Jimmy Kimball announced it, on television. But like you say, a way to brand yourself
And I think the important kernel to pull from that is he knew what he wanted to do. He knew what he wanted to get. So he found a way to leverage these tools.
and just kind of showcase his skills. I'm a communications major.
Exactly.
Look at what I've learned. Look at what I can do for your
Exactly.
company. It was really cute.
Yeah.
The skit.
And I mean, things like that, if you're thinking of culinary, right, and you have a culinary skill set, you can do a podcast, you can do a vlog, you can do whatever to showcase your skill set. That's what the premise that the end goal is to get a job within an existing bakery or within an existing company. It's a very good question.
What's coming next
In terms of social media?
in terms of social media? Yeah. What's the next?
Like the trend. Like, how like there's like a lot of like in the job market now, like there's like, for example, like I was watching Sweetie Pies, and like first position they have like this one girl that's actually like a social media person that like updates their social media. So I was gonna ask you, like, how is the job market gonna go about that? Do you think that there's gonna be more job openings and like things like that, or like what are the certain trends for it?
I hope that there'll be more job openings, because I love firms and agencies, but I see a lot of value of having your marketing, your social media person in-house, because they'll exude the company's ethos. They'll understand how to best tell the company's story. If you were to ask me that question a year ago, I probably would have been, oh, Snapchat this, and been into that conversation, because think it's easy to get sucked into the FOMO, the fear of missing out. But I've found that I'm not able to do my best work if I'm constantly looking for the next best thing. So there's going to be thought leaders in the industry that you can rely on to give you those pieces of information. It's just a matter of finding ways to best utilize those tools. And at the end of the day, it comes down to building community around your brand. It comes down to telling your brand story and engaging with customers, whether it be from the acquisition side or for the retention and the customer service side. People are saying virtual reality is going to be a thing. Maybe. It depends on the context. A friend of mine works in digital media. He got a virtual reality kit from a distillery in Ireland. I put it on. It was kind of cool. It gave me a tour of the facility. Not every context is going to be suited for that, nor will every context have sort of the market saturation and the reach to do things like that. So it really comes down to where is your business positioned within the industry? How much of a market share do you have? How much do you want to acquire over the next year or two? And how much bankroll do you have to invest into these specific initiatives? So the next big thing may not be appropriate for small to mid-sized businesses, depending on what their budget is for marketing. But there's a lot that can be done on a shoestring budget, as long as you're consistent and have a strategy in place. Catherine?
Which platform do you think people use the most and why?
I know the data is probably pushing the high percent. Your big four, I'm going to call Snapchat your big four. So you have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and then Snapchat. You're going to have different platforms for different contexts, and if you're thinking globally, you're going to have things like WeChat and other types of tools that people use. I think they use these platforms because it's relatively intuitive. They can tell a story. They can share things that they want to share. They can stay connected with their community. And a lot of them are very big and behemoth-like, so once you're associated with them, it's hard to disconnect. It seems like they have their own gravitational pull. And I think Facebook will continue to iterate, Twitter and Instagram and Snapchat will continue to iterate based on the feedback from the users. We'll see. See if we have more MySpaces down the road. Who knows? Mike, question?
So like being that you always like working on media, how often do you feel like you're pushing?
How often? I'm not on it nearly as much as I used to be. So a year ago, I could say I wanted to be a curator of great content. I wouldn't read half the stuff that I would share. I would go to my trusted sources that I like and I would share that content. Now I'm more refined with what I share and how I share. I engage with people that I've built relationships with, primarily face-to-face relationships. I don't really communicate with too many people that I haven't met face-to-face at one point in time or another. I've found that social media is a great way to connect with folks at conferences. So if I'm going to a conference, I can engage with people that are actively engaging at those different conferences. If there's a conference that I would like to go to and I can't, I can listen to see who's and engage. But yeah, I would say a handful of tweets a day. If I read something good, post it out there. I want to start putting out more content around the college because I want to start showcasing more of the great work that we're doing at the 2-year school level and the partnerships that we have with 4-year schools. So trying to transition my personal brand to be more parallel with that of the institution. Yeah, that's a good question.
Do you have any idea, if you could create your own social media site, do you know what you would do?
No.
I'm not, that's literally, that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the thing, because maybe if there's just one, like if we took all of them together and just made one.
Yeah, that would be easy enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have that level of creativity. I know how to exploit and utilize tools to the best of their ability.
That works.
But yeah, no, that's a really good question. I'm not that creative just yet. Maybe not ever.
What's going to happen with the younger generation and their communication skills? So they're writing on Facebook, they're communicating via pictures. I worry about their written and oral communication skills.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that comes down to parenting. As a father, I can say that. Because there are expectations that you can set for the younger generations somewhat as the parent, and you can choose to supplement your children's education and sort of, I think as it currently stands, parents don't understand the tools as much as their kids may.
Right.
But I think as the pendulum swings, parents like me are equipped and understand these tools, and we can show our kids how to use them. Maybe we add a blog. Maybe we teach our kids how to write 500-word blog posts, and that goes to 1,000.
Teach them how to utilize it in the best way possible.
Yeah, and identify the potential shortcomings not as a negative thing, saying this is bad, but this is a built-in shortcoming. This is how you can overcome it and become a better writer, become a better what have you. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Things have been moving way too fast for the last 5-10 years, so I don't know.
When did you people start your Facebook page? How old were you?
13. 12, 13.
Really?
2019, 18, 20, something like that. Catherine?
So you talk a lot about like digital printing for our kids or like nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
But do you ever think that business is gonna be affected by digital printing too?
I think businesses can be affected by the digital footprinting in the sense that if they don't address the negative comments and the negative feedback, that's going to be forever on the interwebs. And if they're not showing the rest of the online world that they're trying to effectively fix this problem, you could lose credibility. I think stuff that's put out there will stay forever. Even if you delete it, it's going to stay there in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah, I think businesses need to be intentional with how they engage with folks in this content that they put out there and how they respond to criticism and things like that.
Any last questions? No? Well, thank you so much. This
Not
was
a problem.
so interesting. And we're going to make you an official Nighthawk.
Nice.
So wear with pride.
Thank you. That's awesome. So, if you want to continue these conversations, by all means, you can reach out to me, whatever you want these platforms, or you can pass my email address along if that's something that you want to do. I think this is very much a preliminary conversation, and there's going to be, if you want to do this well, it's got to be a case-by-case sort of exploratory thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was great. I probably learned more than you people did.